How many of you know what differential stress resistance is? And would you be more inclined to know what it is if I told you that it could potentially reduce the risk of developing serious diseases such as multiple sclerosis or even cancer, as well as aiding in your symptoms of already developed diseases? Differential stress resistance can be described as the difference in the ability of cancer cells and healthy cells to mount a proper stress response to the environment created by deprivation. This description is a quote from a doctor known as Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and the environment I'll be discussing today is known as intermittent fasting. There's a multitude of positive results that come from intermittent fasting, and I will also be discussing a background of eating in general and what someone should consider before they are curious to see if it works for them. So intermittent fasting is basically your body ridding itself of unneeded and possibly harmful cells. The process of which that would happen would be when it is not intaking nutrients. So it'd be during the time period that someone is not eating. Moreover, to the history of eating, the feeling of hunger is something most modern day Americans probably don't feel or aren't welcome to the idea of feeling. Something I think about are the cave people, and in that era, they didn't really have the resources to go get a Cliff Bar before they were to make a long trek up a mountain, and they were obviously in much better shape than we are today. So it would be interesting to see if we could benefit more from adapting to their lifestyle than versus how we eat for comfort and not necessarily for the nutrient value nowadays. So intermittent fasting is just eating during a certain time. It has other names like the fasting mimicking diet or time-restricted eating. And of course, intermittent fasting is or can be more of a lifestyle choice versus just a fad or diet. But an example of an intermittent fasting regimen could be a 16 to 8 hour window. During the 16 hours, you are only drinking water and your body is cleaning itself up in a sense. The cells are in a deprivation mode, and that's where the differential stress resistance environment comes into play. The cancerous cells and other harmful diseases have a harder time to adapt and thrive in such extremes and can die off during this process, and they do. During the 8 hour window, it would be more beneficial for the person to eat more healthier foods. Other routines could include eating during a 9 or 10 hour window. The key point here is to eat during a 12-hour clock. The 12-hour clock refers to how a metabolism naturally functions. Humans are made to function and act during the day. We're not nocturnal animals, so our metabolism runs during the day. It's activated by food and by light. When someone exceeds the 12-hour window, they're more likely to develop undesirable mutations of their genes, or their body stores the excess materials in places where it doesn't belong. Some examples of the consequences of eating beyond a 12-hour window is an insulin unresponsiveness, which is basically just being unable to process sugars normally, and producing more fat or even muscle mass beginning to waste away are other consequences. A study was done in mice, and essentially what was found is mice fed high fat and high sugar diets and eating whenever they wanted, gained more weight, became type 2 diabetic, and had fattier livers. And if they ate a more healthy diet during a 12-hour window or less, they gained muscle mass and had more improved endurance and life expectancy. And the best results ranged from a 9 to 10 hour eating window. Of course, mice are entirely different than humans, but I found the study to be relative to intermittent fasting. Of course, people have different DNA and dietary needs. Someone with more ancestors in Europe may be able to process potatoes better than other people whose ancestors aren't from that region, which, it's just how your body is. Regardless of those specific needs, though, intermittent fasting does help anyone's mitochondrial function and life expectancy, as well as longevity. If you've taken human anatomy and physiology, you'll know mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. That's where energy is produced. So, in conclusion, some main takeaways are to understand metabolisms aren't meant to naturally exceed a 12-hour window, and eating within a 12-hour window or less will aid your body in cleaning out bad cells and provide you potentially with more energy and overall health. Differential stress resistance does combat diseases such as cancer growth, multiple sclerosis, as well as just leaving the metabolism and body in a more optimal functioning state.